Oh, we live. We're live now. We're officially live. Okay, cool. Cool. Go ahead and do this. I hope you all can see my screen.
Yep, they can see it.
They can see it. Thank you, Alante. Thank you. I appreciate it.
They can't see it. Sorry, but yes.
You said what? You said that everybody can see it?
Yeah, except for when I start talking. So I'm going to be quiet. Hi, everybody.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, 7 o'clock. Bet. Man, I'm really excited to have this opportunity to present at this virtual summit. Grateful to have the opportunity. And I'm going to share with you the process to success. My name is Jonathan Jones. I'm a TEDx speaker. I'm a best-selling author, and I'm the host of the Speak Your Success podcast. We're going to go ahead and just get into the presentation. Just so you all know, this will be interactive. I won't be able to see your comments. However, but I would just want to challenge you to either get a piece of paper. It's not going to be like, writing out like a dissertation, nothing like that, but just get a small piece of paper, or you can just chime in with the comments, because after I present, then I'm gonna go back and look at them, and then we can definitely talk. But I really want you to really interact so that you can get the best value out of the presentation. And without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get into it. Paper or plastic? That was the first thing that you would always hear Johnny say as everybody would begin to pass through his line at the local grocery store. You see, Johnny was an individual who just wanted to make sure that he could impact people and leave a mark in each one of their lives as they pass through, understanding that he would be the last person to connect with each and every one of these individuals. But wait a minute. Let me slow down. Actually, let me rewind it back. Let me tell you where this all started. You see, Johnny was an individual who had a slight disability. And Johnny was at home one day and he said, Dad, I have to do something. I can't sit at home all the time. I can't sit at home all day. I feel lazy. I feel like I'm nothing. I feel like I'm not doing anything or adding value to anyone around me. Dad, you have to help me. I have to get a job or something. And after his dad looked at him, his face dropped, because his heart shattered to hear his son feel that he was nothing. But then the dad went upstairs and retired to his room and left Johnny to his thoughts, because he didn't know what to tell him to encourage him. After that, the next morning, his dad said, Johnny, he woke up bright and early. Johnny, I have an idea, son. I know exactly what you can do. You said you want a job. I have the perfect job. I have a friend. He's the manager at the local grocery store just up the road. Me and him went to high school together, and he's seen you grow up all these years. I'm sure he'll be likely to allow you to have the opportunity to work at his grocery store. Johnny said, yes, Dad, that's awesome. I love that idea. Please, can you take me up there tomorrow morning? He said, son, I'll take you bright and early. So Johnny began working at that local grocery store. Johnny was the local bagger that we always see every time we pass by. And seeing Johnny, he would always ask the individuals, paper or plastic? Because Johnny cared for people enough to make sure that their groceries were taken care of, to make sure that their groceries were accounted for, making sure that the eggs were put on the top rack in the cart, made sure the water was put at the bottom so nothing was crushed or shaken. But then it was about 3 months in, then Johnny was at the grocery store. He said, Dad, I know I asked you for a job. Dad, I wanted to do something, and you allowed me that opportunity, but still. Dad, but still, I want to do more. I want to have more of an impact, Dad. He said, Johnny, well, you said you wanted a job, son, and I made that happen for you. And now you're saying you want to do more. Johnny, well, what more do you want to do? He said, where did this even come from? Johnny said, well, Dad, we all at the grocery store were sent to a conference. And this woman began to talk about leaving your impact and making a mark in the world. But then I began to think, how am I making my mark? How am I leaving a true impact, Dad? I'm just bagging groceries. But then at that point, Johnny went home and he began to go outside and check the mail as he always did every other day. And then he saw his neighbor, Mr. Wilson, walk up. He said, "Hey, Johnny." He said, hey, Mr. Wilson, how are you doing? He said, "Johnny, it's good to see you. I have this quote I want to share with you. Do you mind? Do you have a quick minute?" He said, "Sure, Mr. Wilson, I have a minute." He began to share a quote with Johnny. And from that moment, Johnny realized that his attitude began to change. His frown was then turned upside down, and now he was smiling across his face. Johnny ran inside. He threw the mail on the kitchen counter. He said, "Dad, I got it. Dad, I know exactly what I'm going to do." He said, "Johnny, what'd you come up with?" He said, "Dad, since I told you I want to leave an impact on people because I see them coming in, some people mad, some people upset, others that they're not even wanting to deal with the kids that they have." He said, "Dad, I want to leave people with the thought of the day." He said, "Well, Johnny, what do you want me to do?" He said, "Dad, I just want you to help me make copies." So Johnny went home, began to type on the computer. Then he would cut the paper in half with his father, preparing for the next day, having 50 quotes in hand, ready to hand out. The next day, each customer began to come through the line. Johnny would begin to slide a quote in their bag. "Have a nice day." Slide a quote in their bag. "Come back and see us." Slide a quote in their bag. "It was great to see you." Friends, then the point where this really shifted was the manager came in one day. He said, what's going on? What's happening on aisle 6? Why are there 10 people deep in this line? What is happening? Sally, can you get on register 4? Bobby, can you tell them that can you let them know that you're open on register 2? We have more aisles open. Please send these people. The manager ran to the back line and said, ma'am, we can take you over here on aisle 6. She said, "No, sir, I'm waiting. It's fine. Thank you, though. I appreciate the offer." The manager approached somebody else right behind her. Said, "Sir, would you like to get over here?" "Nope, I'm waiting for Johnny's word of the day." Then he quickly ran to the gentleman at the end of the line. He said, "Sir, you're at the end of the line. You're looking at a long wait. We want to get you out of here. We have more than one line open. This isn't Walmart. We deliver great customer service." He said, "Sir, look at my list. At the bottom of the list, along with all the other items, it says Johnny's word of the day. If I don't return with all the items on the list, my wife is going to kill me." Friends, the reason I share this story with you all today, because I know each of you in the respective field that you're in, the degree that you're pursuing, the change that you will create in this world and that you have already done thus far. I want us to begin to reflect on this first point. And the first point is impact over income. You see, Johnny did not take the job as being the bagger because he knew he was going to make the most money. Johnny didn't begin to slide notes in people's bags because he knew he was going to get a raise. However, Johnny had a pure heart. Johnny wanted to leave a message in each individual's bag because he wanted to leave his mark and he wanted to leave an impact on that individual's life. Johnny said he couldn't rest that night until he wrote out that note to slide in their bag for the thought of the day. Friends, the first question I want to ask you is, what's one thing you know that you can't rest until you do this? Because I know some of you might be at home and you can't rest because you have an idea for a nonprofit. You have an idea that you know you will provide a child with education. You have an idea as you're going through your program and as you're preparing your dissertation, because this helps push you and motivates you, because you know that you're going to create change with this idea that you have. So I want us to begin to think, what's that one thing that you can't rest until you release? Because we know if we chase the income, if we chase that dollar, we know we'll be burnt out half the time before we even get there. We know if we begin to chase the dollar even more than that, Sometimes we'll even forget what our main purpose was for getting into the field that we're pursuing right now. So I really just want you to, I really want to leave that with you, because I think that's really important, because social media and all of our friends, we can get caught up in what our friends are doing on social media. And sometimes we can get caught up in that FOMO, that fear of missing out, because we're like, I want that. I should be there. But I want us to remember to focus on the impact, because that's where that true change occurs. That's what Johnny began to focus on, and he was able to shift the culture of the grocery store. And I know that you all on this line today will begin to shift the culture in not just your community, but now, due to technology, the trajectory of the world. And I know that we have world changers on here today, and I'm excited that you all are pursuing those passions and pursuing those dreams and visions. And I want to encourage you in that. But understanding that pursuing impact is one thing. But also on the other side, I think there's something that comes with impact, and there's something that comes with being our greatest selves. The next thing I want to talk with us today about is, I want to talk with us about sacrifice today. And the reason I want to talk about sacrifice, if I can be transparent, and if you all allow me to be vulnerable just for a moment, I want to begin to take you down memory lane. For me, during this time when I got involved working for a nonprofit, and one thing we know about nonprofit, it's overworked, underpaid. You're doing this for the greater good. It is what's often advertised. However, I found myself at this nonprofit that I grew up in. When I was younger, my mom would bring me there to volunteer. I got a little bit older. Then I began to be an intern. After that, moved up, and I was a facilitator for the programs at the sites. And then ultimately, I found myself interviewing for the position of program manager. And you all, I'm not gonna lie, when I heard the program manager, just the title, I said, ooh, that sounds good. Please tell me a little bit more about that. The gentleman began to tell me, who was my boss at the time, Dr. Daniel B. Prescott. He said, Jonathan Jones, Mr. Jones, Mr. Jones. Fresh out of college, I knew you would come back, son. Because one thing in his mind, he wanted to make me the next CEO of the organization. Unfortunately, I had other plans. However, the story begins to progress, because he told me, he said, Mr. Jones, you'll be in charge over these summer sites. 50 sites, 125 plus employees. You'll be responsible for providing 5,000 meals. How does that sound, Mr. Jones? I said, well, Dr. Prescott, that sounds pretty good, sir. Because during this time, I was trying to rev up my resume. I was trying to beef it up, because I wasn't sure what was next after this job. I wasn't sure where this job could potentially take me. Then he began to tell me about this job, and instantly after he's telling me these numbers, I didn't hear anything else. I was just ready to sign the dotted line, because I was ready to get that check, but I didn't know fully what I was signing up for. I didn't know the sacrifice that was required for this position. Then about 3 months in, we fast forward, and then, just like I'm sure many faced that time where I was exhausted, emotionally, mentally, I was drained. I would come home, I was ready to cry. I would say, Mom, I don't know how long I can do this job. This job is difficult. This job is tough. Man, I don't think I'm made out for this job. My mom said, son, you'll be fine. Just keep on showing up. You'll be fine. Then it got to the point where I'm looking across to see my coworker, Miss Donna, who'd been at that organization for 20 plus years. She said, Jonathan, you're doing a great job. Just keep working. Yeah, I know it's tough. Just keep on working. Then we move forward a little bit in the story. And now at this point, we really see what the sacrifice looks like. Because friends, for me, the level of sacrifice that was required was, I had to start going to sleep a little bit earlier, because before, like I said, I was living life a little bit reckless, a little bit wild. Happy hour was my main focus. I would go to Kona Grill, get some sushi, spicy tuna roll with spicy mayo on the side. I'll get 2 frozen margaritas, and I get 3 if I really want to push it. But then that night, I would try to do that and then wake up early the next morning. However, the sacrifice that became required of me was now showing up to work earlier to get the job done. Friends, the point that I want us to take away from this is sacrifice always comes before success. And, you know, I didn't write the dictionary, so we all can blame Webster for this one. Because sacrifice, you know, SAC, success, SUC, it speaks for itself. But however, in order to know the level of sacrifice that's required, we need to first define what success looks like in our life. For you, it might look like getting that doctoral degree. It might look like you going into a field where they name a procedure after you. Some people, it might be getting married, having 2.5 kids, having a white picket fence on 4 acres of land with a dog named Barkless. I don't know what success looks like for you. But friends, I just want to say that once we identify what success looks like, then we see the level of sacrifice that's required. So I want to challenge you today to just think, because in order for us to get to our next stage and our next best self, because I believe sacrifice is us giving up who we are for ultimately who we will become. So I'm just curious. I'm gonna take a moment. I'm gonna hop out and I'm gonna look at the comments. But if you're bold enough to comment, what are you willing to sacrifice today so that you can get to that next level in your life? Some of us have some bad habits that we've allowed to loom around us. Mine was definitely drinking too much. I had to sacrifice that. Some of us, it might be a toxic relationship. It's time to sacrifice that. But I'm really curious just to get a feel. What are we willing to sacrifice? What do we know that needs to be brought out into the light so that we can kill that thing? So we can create some accountability around us to where we can have some support. Earlier, Joy and Raven were talking about support groups and talking about individuals to encourage us in our journey. What does that sacrifice look like for you? Just gonna take a quick moment and hop out. And if you would like to comment, feel free to comment. If not, it's fine. But please write it on your paper, because I don't want you to leave today knowing that you have something that you know it's time to sacrifice, but you're still allowing it to lurk around. I don't want you to leave today knowing that, but you're still. Oh, cool. Oh, let's get back to sharing screen here. Oh, I got myself out of this. Okay, there we go. Cool. We're back. Cool. We're back. So yeah, that's one thing I just wanted to take time and just think about and just process through. Because as I said before, alcohol was a piece of something I had to sacrifice. But this was around the same time I put in my application to apply to grad school. This is around the same time I started my book. And there were some things I had to sacrifice some friendships, because there were some friends who were caught up in a fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. And ultimately, we weren't doing each other any good. So I had to move around from that angle. But so we're talking about what we need to give up, but also I want to ask you, want to shift the way we're viewing sacrifice, but also I want you to now think of who is somebody who sacrificed for you. Who is that individual who has picked up 2 jobs, 3 jobs, picked up an extra job just to get you a bike on Christmas just so that they could see that smile on your face? Who's that individual who put a lien on the house so that you could start graduate school, so that you had the opportunity to pursue those initials in front of your name, so you can get the P, the H, and the D? I'm just curious because I think it's great for us sometimes to reflect on those who have paved the way for us, those grandparents who stopped going to school so that our parents could have the opportunity to get a valid education. They worked, they put the money up. I want you then just to be challenged and think about those people, because I know that really humbles me. Anytime I start getting the big head, start wanting to get on my high horse, I then remember those people who put on for me when nobody else would. Those people who stood up for me. So I just want us to take away us defining what success looks like for ourselves. Because if we don't, then we're susceptible to ascribe to what success looks like for other people and them placing that on us. But then thinking about, what are we willing to give up? Because sometimes in order for us to get to our best place, we need to isolate ourselves from other people and sacrifice those old relationships to create space for the new ones to come. And let's see, I have this last slide. Now I want us just to begin to think about remembering the commitments. As I know, each of you on this call are visionaries. You all dream big. You have aspirations bigger than some people can even fathom. However, I want you today to not make a commitment to yourself to be great. Because when we make commitments to ourselves, we quit on ourselves more times than we should. Sometimes we don't even give ourselves the credit that we ultimately deserve. However, I want you to think about, who is that individual in your life who is looking up to you and following after your every step. They see you go left, they're going left right behind you. They see you go right, they're following in all of your footsteps. Today, I want you to make a vow to that individual. Is it your niece? Is it your nephew? Is it a child that you're mentoring? Is it somebody who's in your program? Because we all have a realm of influence. And we have somebody who's looking up to us. But we have to get back to the commitment that we've made. We have to make a vow. For me, I was young and I once thought that I wanted to be a fireman. Then I realized that in order to save people from fires, you have to run into burning buildings. I began to think, no, that's not for Jonathan. No, thank you. Next, I thought, well, maybe I'll be a hockey player because it looks cool. They skate on ice, they check each other into the wall, and they play loud music. The fans go crazy. But then I began to realize that I don't know how to ice skate, which ultimately brings me to where I am today. Now that I've grown up a little bit, but still I realized and I remember that I have to sometimes go back to that childlike place. And I have to then tap into my imagination. Because you all on here today, you all will impact people. You might not be able to see them in your sight right now. You might not see them for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. However, if it ever gets tough on you and you ever find yourself in a dark place and you feel like you're struggling to find that ounce of hope, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to not see with your sight. And I want you to imagine the lives that you will change. I want you to imagine the purposes that you will cultivate. I want you to imagine the opportunities that you create by birthing that nonprofit. I want you to imagine those people that you encourage to start their own podcast because you did. Like an Alante with her podcast. And like some of you others doing what you're doing on social media and other realms of influence that you have. We have to get back to that commitment. So I want you to think about who is that person that you need to make a commitment to today to help you get through those tough times, to help you press through. Because ultimately the legacy that you leave will be a direct result of the daily decisions and the efforts that you make. Today, we can all start fresh. So I want us to think about who do we need to make a commitment to? Don't ever forget that you're here for a reason. You're here for a purpose. You're here on a mission. I'm not sure where your purpose aligns. I'm not sure what your goals and dreams and aspirations are, but you know better than anybody else. So today I want to leave you to always remember that impact goes over income all day, any day. Because it's about changing lives, not about the amount of money we make. Money will come. I want you to always remember that the sacrifice comes before the success. When it gets tough, when you're stressed out, take a moment, do some of those mental health or wellness exercises that Joy and Raven talked about earlier to get yourself centered. Define what success looks like for you. And then lastly, remember that commitment and make that vow. Because the way I always close out my podcast, the Speak Your Success podcast, I always say, speak your success. Because I believe once we get in a habit of putting things into the atmosphere, then we say it more and more, and then we believe it in our mind. And then it connects with our heart. The next part of the phrase I say is believe in your greatness. Once it hits your heart, that's when you're connecting with other people to serve them. And then when you believe in your greatness, when you take the time to celebrate yourself sometime, like Alante showed us a few months ago when she said, I'm going to brag on myself a little bit today. She said, usually I don't do this, but then she began to talk about the award that she was able to receive based on the efforts and the work that she's done. And I think that's awesome because we need to take time and celebrate our accomplishments. We can't get too high on ourselves, but we need to take that moment. But lastly, I close out with create the life and business of your dreams. Because friends, I believe that life is too short for us not to live our lives the way that we desire to. Life is too short not for us to do what we want with our own lives. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I hope you're encouraged. I'm going to go ahead and take down the PowerPoint. I actually have one more slide, but I mean, if you have any questions, we can talk about questions, or if anybody has anything they would like to share, we can do that. And I have one final slide. It's just with some tangible takeaways that I just want to leave with you. But if there's any questions or anything like that at this time, I'm open to hear those. And yeah, let's see. Are there any questions down here? Oh wow! See y'all shouting out people on making a commitment with the sacrifices. That's dope. That's super dope. Super dope. Super. How do you speak your success every day? I'm glad you asked that, Alante. How do I speak my success every day? So on the tangible takeaways, I don't have the slide up, but I'll put it up. But I speak my success daily by, well, actually, I'll put my social media up here, and we can connect on social media. Everybody, we can connect on social media if you would like. But Alante, I speak my success daily by words of affirmation. Initially, I started out writing things down. saying, I will, well, I am great. I am powerful. I am strong. I am bold. I am courageous. And then ultimately this motivated me to now, to now do things that I was a little bit scared of. So I would do that daily. And then even from that point, then I would, let me bring this back up. Oops. I would do that daily. And then after I did that, writing them out and then pushing myself to do something that I did not want to do. For instance, I typically work with colleges. I typically work with middle schools, high schools, and I go in and I speak on my book process. And I typically share life experience. So I would force myself to call X amount of schools a day. I started being one school. I started doing that consistently. Then the next day I'd raise it to 2 schools. And then I'd start doing more and more. So I just start small like that and force myself to do something that I didn't necessarily want to do per se. Thank you for that question. That was a great question. Does anybody else have any questions? Let's see. If you have a question or if you have something you'd like to share, please go ahead and just ask at this time. I'm all the way open, and I would love to answer your questions if you have any. If not, then that really wraps me up. I'm gonna show this final slide, and then I'll be done. So tangible takeaways. In each one of these, well, a few of these I pulled from my book. The first one I want to talk about is just investing in yourself. I think investing in yourself is huge. If it be through mental health, getting with a counselor, if it be investing in personal development, or if you have a brand, take the time, invest in yourself. We invest in shoes, we invest in things that make us look nice, but why don't we invest in ourselves to better our minds, invest in ourselves to better our future? 2, dissect your successes. If you see that what you're doing is producing results, continue to break that down and see how you can multiply that effort into where you can achieve more success. Just as I shared, I said I call one school, then the next day I call another school, and then I'll stretch it out based on my level of comfort. Based on my level of uncomfortability to ultimately be able to achieve the goal, which is booking speaking engagements and working with students to add value and then to create a greater impact. Number 3, be a giver. I just have be a giver because I think that many of us, I think all of us have had a point in our lives where somebody has given to us. So I think it's our time to pay it forward and give to somebody else, pour into somebody else. If it be a hug, a compliment, a listening ear, whatever it might be, but just be a giver. Stop scoreboard watching. I say stop scoreboard watching because it can be easy to watch what everybody else around you is accomplishing. It can be easy to get lost in somebody else's accomplishments. But when we begin to watch what everybody else is doing or watch the quote unquote score, then we lose because we're no longer working on our goal, dream, vision, etc., because we're watching somebody else bring theirs to fruition. So stop scoreboard watching. Don't get caught up with that. If social media is causing you trouble, then get off that thing. Get off of there. Post and get off. The next one, like I shared about Alante, share those, celebrate your victories. Celebrate those victories, but don't get too lost in it. Take a moment to celebrate yourself, but then move forward. Celebrate those who you love most, because we all need an encouraging word. And lastly, diversify your relationships, because when good people connect, great things happen. And ultimately, I believe that once we eliminate some of those bad relationships, or once we begin to just pursue better for our lives, we'll see some of those bad relationships start to dwindle off by the wayside. So I'm very grateful for you all allowing me the opportunity to share, for you all taking the time to tune in. If you'd like to connect on social media, here is my social media handles, anything like that. And I feel like doing a giveaway. So I'll do the first 2 people. The first 2 people to follow me on Twitter on my podcast page. Follow me on Twitter. Mention what you took away. Then I will send you an autographed copy of my book. First 2 people to follow SYS Podcast 1 on Twitter. Write to me what you took away today, and I will get your information, and I will send you an autographed copy of my book, Process. And let me stop sharing this. Stop sharing. That's me. Okay, cool. But yeah, just like I said before, first person, I'll send you an autographed copy of Process. I don't know if you all can see it.
Yep.
Oh, you can? Cool. Okay. Autographed copy. And yeah, I'd love to connect with each of you on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. Alante, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.